All right, so Senate Health and Welfare, we're back. We are going to look at the final draft of H 401 for a vote. And then we're going to move to H 91 for Kate, why don't we look at the draft that we have?
Sure.
What would that number be?
4.1.
4.1.
So this is, as you'll notice, this draft, it hasn't been edited yet. So if you decide to vote on it now, you would just vote pending any edits. And the change is cottage food operator means a person who produces or packages cottage food products solely in the home kitchen of the person's private residential dwelling or a kitchen on the person's personal property.
Sounds good.
Fantastic. Okay.
Is that good with you?
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Okay. Checking. Is that it?
I mean, that was the last change. I could go through the whole bill if you want.
We're good.
No, we're good. No, we don't need any more.
I can make a motion.
Please.
I make a motion to move draft number 4.1 of H 401
Pending
on
edits.
5/1/25. Sorry,
Pending edits.
pending edits on May 1st, 2025. That
I didn't update it.
Okay,
That's good.
thank you.
Okay,
That's my motion.
discussion.
Are we voting on the amendments or the bill?
We're voting on the bill as a whole as amended.
I will be entirely honest. I strongly dislike all the amendments that have been brought forward. I like the House version. Just,
So, but you've heard testimony, right?
yeah, and I haven't heard any compelling testimony to make me support the amendments.
Okay. That's fine. Remember, we are the healthcare committee, and what we're doing is we're helping people move forward with both health and income. So Senator Cummings, we looked at the final the draft 4.1, which has, can you read the definition again of the one kitchen?
Yeah, means a person who produces or packages cottage food products solely in the home kitchen of the person's private residential dwelling or in a kitchen on the person's private property. Okay.
Okay, I made a motion.
Okay.
And we have a motion on the table, and I asked for discussion. And Senator Douglas's comment was he doesn't like the bill.
I like the House pass version. That's what I said.
You're correct. So,
And I do appreciate everybody's willingness, especially the Department of Health's willingness for that small little blurb that we just attached there. It makes it a little bit better for me. But you know, we are the healthcare committee, and talking about healthcare and talking about public health. I went and I looked at the data that the Department of Health gave us, and it all seems to be coming from all the issues around food safety seem to be coming from like community events like potlucks where people are cooking food in their kitchen, yes, but they're not doing it for business. When you're doing the farmer's market, when you have a business, you have a little LLC, support your mortgage, support your rent, your entire reputation is built on that. It's your name. You can't just fire the cook. You know, if for like a normal restaurant could, if you're having a lot of food safety issues. So, you know, somebody that's making the food products for their company or for their small business, their entire reputation is on that. You're going to be a lot safer when it comes to doing that. You're not going to be just throwing caution to the wind and not caring about the safety of your products, because if you have one or two bad cases, that spreads in farmers markets and in the low food community. That spreads very quickly, and your entire business is going to, I guess, go up in smoke or go up in listeria, whatever you call it.
Clostridium.
Clostridium. So I don't see why we need the amendments when there isn't. I haven't seen any testimony that shows that it's specifically coming from farmers markets or it's coming from the cottage food industry. And I think this opens the door to a lot more regulation of an industry that by its nature shouldn't be regulated.
Okay, I see it's the opposite. Go ahead, Senator.
I still love you.
I'll have a comment.
We haven't had issues because we have had regulations. We are expanding the regulations. If we don't have any issues, then we can consider expanding it more. I think people in general do take very good care. But all you need is one outlier. And somebody gets sick and the whole industry is going to suffer. And I will admit, I look at people and I consider what I buy at farmers markets. But then I read all the stuff on botulism and ended up not canning much other than tomatoes. And that was trusting me to cook stuff for my own family or to can stuff. So I have this issue with when we let farmers slaughter or sell chicken to breast slaughter, and whether or not farmers needed training on how to slaughter chicken because that's where issues come in. And I was told that farmers know how to slaughter chickens. Well, some farmers do, but not. And
There's raw milk.
and
We
there's
went through all of that. And we've seen compliance and
some of us are old enough to remember when people got tuberculosis.
yes,
And tuberculosis is coming back and that's part of the raw milk. We do better with inoculating cows now, but I think this is, it's a step forward. It's allowing you to make 3 times as much money as you can make now. Which is enough money so you can probably leave your day job or leave half your day job. And move up to the next layer, and then we go to the commercial if that's what you want to do.
we heard from the co-op people. We heard from the local farm. Coffee Valley. We heard from rural Vermont. We haven't heard back. It seems like they're gonna be fine with what we're doing. I think we all understand that, our kitchen back home is the one that is the cleanest. And when we make something, we know we're gonna protect our families and our friends and those we're selling to. But you don't know unless you follow protocol that you're actually doing it. You're not gonna do that, but maybe I won't either. Maybe my grape jelly, that's about it. We'll see. Now we have a recipe for asparagus. It's come off of the Department of Health
We're gonna get
webpage.
10 pounds of asparagus.
Yeah, but we need 7 or 10 pounds of asparagus. I don't know if I can grow that much. Anyway,
I'm sure even Jane Kitchell will do that.
so I think that we're at a stage here where we should vote. And so clerk, I'm gonna ask you to
On to
call the
Dick.
vote. And that's the way it is. And Senator Hart, I know you're there listening. Do you have a comment before we vote or not? For the,
I don't really have a comment on it, to be honest with you.
okay,
I was in favor of it. I was in favor of the House bill and that one amendment that I just see Katie did for you guys, that wasn't that bad. I didn't think it was that bad.
okay. So, and chair discretion, you are allowed to vote on this.
Thank you.
All right,
Because we're merciful, we're like,
I am versatile. Sometimes. Always.
The giggles, well, the giggles.
It's sunny out.
And then it's gonna rain for like 6 days.
Won't be able to do well, but
one last signing itty comment.
yes.
I'm gonna vote no, but it's not because of the original bill.
We understand.
Last comment. Okay, all right.
So go ahead and I'll say something.
Sure. Senator Cummings,
Yes.
me. Senator Hewitt,
Yes.
Senator Hart,
Yes,
and Senator Lyons.
Yes. And so my comment is no here. It might be helpful to support the bill on the floor if you so desire. Not, we may find that we're in a conference. So we'll see what happens, but you have voted no, so you would not be eligible for the conference committee. You understand that? All right,
Sorry, I was late. My iPad had a notice of a software update. And I don't have enough storage to update it. And I went through and there's virtually nothing on my iPad, so I went down. We had to do away with Excel and Microsoft and.
wait, are we talking about this bill right now?
No, something talking about.
All right, if you
If
hold that thought.
anyone else's
Hold that thought,
iPad has
Senator.
that,
Got it.
it's your whole operating system that's being updated.
Got it. Okay, so Katie, thank you. All I need is a reporter.
I mean, I was gonna suggest Sam, but he voted no.
I can still
No,
do
you
it.
can't, you're voting.
Oh, you can't
You
report
vote
on.
And no, that was a negative report.
Does Larry want to do it?
No, he's not, well, I don't think so. It's either, it's one of you two. Do you want to report it? No,
No, I don't.
The-
I don't know this stuff.
If you know anecdotes of that, like you have good stories around this stuff.
It's,
No?
I can do it. I've just got little things like the education bill.
I know that.
I'll do it.
You're stuck.
Be prepared
Okay.
for a half-hour presentation today.
Oh,
Yeah.
Senator Julius is a reporter,
Okay, I think I'm gonna be referred to finance.
and you've got,
Yes.
yeah, this is going down finance
Yes,
anyway.
yes.
And then then you can decide if you want to switch reporters, but I think it's just fine, right, where we are. All right.
Okay,
We have two finances.
I'll send you a clean draft when I have it back from finance.
I think that our constituents will actually like this bill.
Would this recipe be considered a prop if I brought it onto the second floor and handed it out?
With,
You can lay it on the desk as long as you put
your name on it.
Okay.
You can't hold it up and wave
But
it.
what would be a prop is if you made the asparagus and brought it in and put it on the desk. But I would be happy with it.
Okay.
All
I
right.
came in one day and there were empty waters on the desk.
So
I'm scared. Joe Benny managed to violate almost every rule of the Senate.
I was the one, just to digress for a second, because we need to get to H91. But I will say, I remember bringing in one of when they started, when I had my first greenhouse gas goals established for the state in 2007. And I brought in the big globe of the world and I held it up there and I talked about it and then
What draft was
that one was, I think that one did it
4.1,
with
sorry, I
Senator
didn't mark
Mans.
that on it for you.
I was gonna say that one was before Bloomer. I think it might have
Yes.
been a little more. lenient.
Yeah, Dave Gibson.
Yeah. He wasn't quite. I don't think I remember Dave bounding up to the balcony to take bottles of water away from something.
So let's move on to H91. Thank you all for your discussion and your work. And Jessica, thank you for so we'll move on to H91. So Katie, yesterday we heard testimony and the fine discussion from folks who were in the room and some agreement that has been reached. I don't know whether you've done anything with that at this point.
Not that can be, not that's ready.
Not that you public up there on the screen, I
Right.
understand that. But is there a way that we could go through the bill and maybe identify the places where some of those agreements have been made? I'd
Yeah.
like to do that for a few minutes and then I'd like to bring Nolan up a little bit to look, maybe talk about money that's in the bill. To just remind us what money is in the bill. So as we go through the bill, we have an understanding of the work that's involved and then what resources are needed to do that.
Would it be helpful if I sort of talked through what will likely be in the next draft?
Yes, and can we do that with the bill or something up or
Oh, you want,
the decision points?
okay, I can go through that. I'm sort of just thinking about going through it in the order that it appears.
Okay,
I'm pulling up let me just pull up my working draft.
sure. I think we're at a stage of transition, this thing, so I know people haven't had time to A, digest it, or B, get the
Yeah,
draft changes done, and it's not anybody's fault.
I think we're quite close to undergrad. So if you want to use the decision checklist as I talk, maybe that is the best way to think it through. So I'm not making any changes to
What's the best way to find that online?
It's not.
Oh,
You have it, we all have our individual copies, and that's how it's gonna be for a while.
Or you could look through your version of a past House H91.
Yeah.
And I'll just sort of track what I'm changing and talk. Do that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Let's do that.
So section 1, the findings are not changing. Section 2, legislative intent. There will be some changes in subsection C to reflect the fact. Right now, the language talks about that it's the intent of the General Assembly that VHART replaces emergency housing and help. As this committee has discussed, that will be tiered. So in fiscal year 27, the emergency housing funding and responsibility will move to VHART, but the HOP funding and responsibility will not move to VHART until fiscal year 28. So that language will be updated to reflect that hearing. And then, for those who are in the room when we worked on the childcare bill, you'll remember that some of the sections were amended many times if they had different effective dates. So you're going to see some of that in the next draft. For example, one thing that you want in place sooner rather than later is the regional advisory groups. So, a portion of the new chapter would be taking effect in fiscal year 25. Like the purpose and the definition section and the concept of the regional advisory groups that would all take effect in fiscal year 25. In fiscal year 26 is when sort of the rest of the content of the chapter would take effect. Let's see. So I've reorganized the sort of section that is establishing the VHART program itself. I don't think there are many substantive changes, just more just organizational changes. And then I've added a section that is an authorization process and a reauthorization review. I've heard that there's an interest in specifying how a community action agency is authorized and then the process for reviewing it and what happens if it's no longer meeting the standards. So the standards itself for authorization are taken from the House bill, so that's what we talked about yesterday. That shouldn't be new or surprising language. There were a few additions. For example, the ability to perform the services that are required in the chapter, and also language, any outcome measures established in the chapter would also be part of the review criteria. We talked about leaving that language kind of vague because you're not going to have performance measures in fiscal year 25. You're going to get them from the department working with stakeholders in October, and it will be your choice whether to codify them. So that's why the language is more like a placeholder, recognizing you want outcome measures, but you have to act in next January if you want those to be part of the bill. Okay, and then there is language that at least every 3 years, the department is to conduct a reauthorization review of community action agencies for providing services under the chapter. If an organization no longer meets the requirements that we just discussed, or not meeting the needs of households and its community, then the community action agency might receive assistance from the department, or the department may choose not to reauthorize a community action agency for VHART services. Then, right now in your as passed version of H91, there are multiple sections where each service that's provided underneath that part is sort of addressed separately. Instead, this draft pulls all of the services into one section. So you'll see one section that has all of the service components that are part of VHARD in one place. With some changes. I've moved the language about use of hotels and motels up to occur after the supportive services, because that is a potential type of service. It made sense to me to group them. And then the committee has talked about language about decreasing reliance on hotel and motel rooms. So that language will be in the next draft, unless you don't want to see it in the next draft. And then there's language that annually, as a shelter capacity increases in each region, the use of hotel and motel rooms in each region would decrease. Annually, as part of the department's budget presentation, it would provide data pertaining those increases and what the proposed decrease would be. And that would be a decision that the General Assembly would have to make each year as part of the budget process, whether to reduce the amount of hotel and motel rooms that could be used for VHARD. Okay. Then we have the next section, as it's currently drafted in this very unpolished form, would be duties of the department. So you're not going to say, this is a section that's in the House version. You're not going to see many changes here. I've done maybe a little bit of cleanup and conforming changes, but not many other changes. The section on regional planning and needs assessment, still a work in progress on my part, but we talked yesterday about having an annual, maybe not annual, a regular, I think is the word we used, a regular process for regional planning and developing like a future needs plan. And it's tied in with planning work that the community action agencies are already doing under Title III. So you could choose to sort of sync those up. I think the current report is a 3-year report, so you could sync this up with that and have this coming in 3 years with that report, but it's sort of an assessment of where what services are needed in the community, where there are gaps, and how do we use this information to plan for the future.
So it probably makes sense to think about having more frequent updates initially as things get going, and then move to an annual or a triannual.
I could do that. I also just want to flag that you're getting, we haven't talked.
We're already getting,
But you're getting a progress report and
Right.
a final report this coming year.
right,
And you're also getting monthly
right.
data from the
That's what my head
department.
was, the monthly.
Yeah.
data. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had mentioned, and I'm just following up. Is there,
Population based.
well, there's that, but I have two things. But one, tied with the needs assessment would be a way to ensure that the funding and the resources are also being equitably distributed. So not equally distributed, but like depending on the needs of the, location and geographic concentration.
And that's part of the regional planning.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've expressed my concerns. I don't hear anything in here, I think. Before we pull the final lever, we need the CAPS to give us an estimate of their administrative costs. I think cover their ability to deal with the people who are presently doing these services. And that's gonna cause some ruffled feathers. But again, my concern is that unless we are planning on funding the CAPS administratively, and not taking that money out of the money that goes to services, that we are in essence cutting this program by sloughing it off.
Well, I guess that's a legitimate concern and I agree with you. Remember that the goal here is right now, we've got in the budget, we've got HOPS for 30 million. We've got GA for 30 million. The goal is to reduce this GA down. And certainly some of the resources there will go into perhaps administration and also services. So there's got to be some kind of transition for that, but I agree with you. The transition needs some help.
We need to know
Yeah,
upfront what their estimated
yes,
administrative costs are gonna be. So I'd like that to be in the report back before
we'll put,
and I think they need to know that we are going to guarantee their overheads. And that also, you say, I've served on boards, go raise money and you can
right.
you have to start out by raising the money for your salary.
So this is why we'll have Nolan up to look at what money is in the bill, because that'll help a little bit. Maybe not completely, but get started.
And my second piece, if I can, thank you, if I may.
You started a whole discussion, Senator.
Sorry about that. Make sure that I guess this would be tied to the advisory board, but making sure that they are looking at where beds need to be and a geographical distribution of beds in regions.
We have that.
You do, Fran, thank you.
Okay, so that would, nope. And then there's a new section that's being added, reporting requirements. And as we talked about yesterday, I drew from the language, from a couple of years ago where we had very detailed reporting requirements, and the past two budgets have referred back to those reporting requirements. They weren't a perfect one for one, but I did my best to sort of, I guess I used them as inspiration to try to tailor them to be more specific to BHART. So that is some of the language that you will see. And then we have some sort of tiering for different requirements taking effect at different times. For example, right now we have the reporting requirements happening on a monthly basis. And in 2030, I've moved them to be on a quarterly basis. The next sections of the bill will likely be the interim implementation plan and the final implementation plan. I'm still playing with those sections a bit. But as we talked about yesterday, the interim plan is going to have at least two pieces. One is the process by which the regional assessments will be conducted. And then the second piece will be the performance benchmarks to come back to the General Assembly. So that's October of 25. And then in January of 25, there'll be other reporting pieces that were in the House's version of the bill.
So some of the things that we haven't talked about yet, and that I'm hoping the cafeteria crew will be working on, and as we will be working on it, are looking at eligibility determinations, intake assessment pieces, and then I think those are going to be important. I know we always run into a log jam when we have those discussions, but they're really critically important. Who's being served and how, and that having service support services is critically important. So while we're moving the program to make it a program, we need to ensure that those services are available, the types of services that are needed are available.
This committee might have a totally different vision than what, House Human Services had. That type of information is captured in their report back. They're looking,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, but
might
so
be
we
wanting
can
to
establish
move
some
that up.
criteria for
Sure.
that, and we may be able to move it up. My thinking is if we do move it up a little bit, right now, there's a set of criteria that are embedded in the budget that is the ongoing GA program. And that would continue then for what? 26 and 27 for 2 years, and maybe there's a way that we can accelerate that transition, so it's not 2 years, maybe it's 1.5, but that's a bigger discussion. I don't know that we can get there. It is part of the report back. If we can get to some common agreement, maybe we can.
Is that information you'd like to see in October versus January?
Well, we could try it. I don't see why not. I see people shaking their heads, yes, and some, oh, but we could try it. For now, think about it.
Like Chris was saying that October is when they can have a plan.
Yeah.
But there were several elements of
Yeah, we're
the
different
report.
things.
One thing was a plan, but also coming back with outcome measures. And I think there'll be some other items that were identified that could be done earlier too.
I know it's hard, but this is a difficult time and place to put pressure, but, we need, if we can move a little bit faster, you know, we might avoid the iceberg. That's all. See what we can do. I just dread the thoughts of coming back and having the same conversation over and over and over. And trying to move forward will keep us from doing that. This has been going on a long time. Katie, thank you for that, but we still have a ways to go. But at least we've made some progress here. If we can put something in that says something about that report back in October for the assessment eligibility.
Yep.
That'd be good.
Okay.
And we can think about that.
Okay.
Senator Douglas.
By chance, Katie, are the notes that you're reading from online?
No, this is the next draft is what I'm reading from, which is not ready for. prime
Nothing
time.
is ready for talk.
It's a work in progress, but hopefully very soon.
Okay. So we have, find my agenda. Mine is 2:38 scheduled. Oh, let's talk.
Yeah.
Oh, because we don't have a lot of time. We have negative time. We're in negative space. But I know there are people in the room who would like to comment briefly on what you heard. Maybe, and I know I asked Nolan to come up on the fiscal note. Do you want to do that now?
Sure.
Let's do that, and let's just do that, and then we'll break for the day. And as you all know, 91 is our top priority, and next week you're going to see a lot of 91 every day. Because we're moving through some of those other bills that we are able to vote on today. And we want to get 91 to a place where we can vote on it. All right, so this is from the fiscal note.
Yeah, so for the record, Noel Langwell, Joint Fiscal Office. I'm pretty sure I've walked through this fiscal note.
Yes, you have.
Before.
Got no time.
So I guess I can either one of two things. I could just hit the points that I think you are asking me to center.
Yeah, that would be.
Or I can just answer questions. So I'll just focus on two pieces then. One is the $10 million appropriation. And that's a one-time, it's in the budget, it's in both House and Senate versions of the budget. And that money was envisioned to be money, go to DCF, general fund, 6.5 for distributions to CAPS, 500,000 for contractual and other system transformation assistance, and 3 million for continued development of capacity. What I think is missing from this version is
There was one little section that said other things.
yeah, and there was other things, and I'm looking at this, but my understanding, and this might be an older version, it is an older version, it doesn't capture the 400,000 that's for the network. So there's $400,000 that's envisioned for the Vermont network. So I think that would need to be cleaned up. If it's not already in the language, I don't know, but clear. So I think, again, this is an older version, but, anyway, this is part of what was envisioned. So I think it was really more, now I'm looking at this, it was 6.5 for caps, it was probably 400 for the network and 3.5 for other stuff. So I'll clean this up. This was an older version. More information came to light to me since that was passed. I have not updated this since whatever the date on this is, March 20th. So it's quite old.
It's all.
A lot more information has come up, but I think it's important that we, much more information has come up, particularly making sure that the network gets money. The other piece is that this was an attempt by me to sort of flag what money is already in the system. I know Commissioner Winters has said that, when this happens, there would be some administration that gets moved around or eliminated or changed. So this doesn't account for that. It does account for some limited service positions that were put in previously in other years that are captured into this. And I have what's 25 budgeted and then 26 gov rec. The difference is that in the House version, they put intent language that the amount of money that would be available would be the 25 budgeted and not the 26 as gov rec, because there's a difference in the money. But that's more of intent. Can't find the future legislature. So that was just more of their intent. That's all. This really is more meant to flag what's in the system currently. And notice it's a mix of one-time and base. And I keep saying that it's base one-time or one-time base because we've been doing the GA money for multiple years in a row. One time again, one time again, one time again. So whether that gets considered future one-time or future base would be a conversation with the appropriations committees. But this is the money as it exists, both one-time and base that's currently being used for GA, hotel, motel vouchers, security, HOP grants, and expanded shelter capacity. And again, what is missing here is what other administrative options within BCF that might be moved or shifted or whatever. So this is just more of a good faith effort to flag no's.
So, yeah. So in our reporting on the budget, we had a space for the hops at 3.35.
Yeah, so this,
Yeah.
again, this was before the House
Yeah,
had passed their
right.
budget. So it's just got wrecked. And I won't update it until
we get there.
we get there. And
Well, I think the question is, so Senator Cummings' question is, how much does it cost for administration of this? And so if there's 6.5 million for the caps, that's over $1 million for each cap. Does each cap need over $1 million? So, maybe, or how much is needed? For me, that seemed like a lot of money. I don't know, what it means. So we need to look at cost accounting from that.
But
in that
there,
area.
I'm trying to,
That's not there. That's in on another page, Senator.
that's
okay, that's transition. money,
That's
right?
transition money,
If we fund all these programs.
Yeah.
My question is, once we transition, what's going to be the administrative
Gotcha.
cost for 5 caps as opposed to one state?
And I think if the House sort of envisioned it as the money that's in that system now would be used to pay for the program, including
Right.
money to caps, administrative, but you're
So
right
there
in terms
would
of
be
how
money-
much.
There would be money coming out of the
GA.
money of GA, the money that is presently being used to shelter people. The caps would have to reduce that amount in order to pay themselves.
Mhm.
Yeah, the way the House envisioned it, the money that is in the system currently is money that would be used for the new program. Just
Hello?
We have a number.
Good.
we don't,
Larry, you need to mute.
Yeah.
Someone needs to mute Larry.
We got it.
Muted.
so we don't have a number and,
How do you tell? I think that's gonna be something that sort of falls out of the work going forward. The other thing is, you know, we've got 1 point whatever million for transition. Is that something that's needed immediately, or is it something that is spaced out over time, and how much time? So there's some questions that we need to ask about how that money is used, because we don't want it to be used up and gone and with good ideas. We want it to be used for that
And
gradual
that's
transition.
what I think we should get back from those regional planning groups. Okay, with an estimate of how much they can, how much it's going to cost them to administer the program. How much they think they can realistically save
Mhm.
before we pull the switch and say, go for it. I think we have a responsibility
Mhm.
to know what the numbers are going to look like, because it's going to cost half the money we're putting in to sheltering people, and we're not gonna build shelters overnight. The state, everybody's been struggling to build shelters for years.
What's the infrastructure look like? What are the costs?
Just, yes, I mean, what do they anticipate doing? But how's the money going to lay out? Because I don't want, if we're out of the loop, it's gonna be harder for us to come up with the money because no one's yelling at us. And B, I wanna make sure we are not leaving more people out in the cold because
We're taking money from
taking
services
money
and
out and
putting it
putting it
into.
into administration.
Totally, I think we're all on that page. I think now, so the CAPs are hearing us. Folks are hearing us in the room, hearing you and hearing the questions, and I think they're really legitimate questions. And Katie, we'll probably have to put something in here that asks for that information ASAP. So, and then Senator Buick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is are the admin costs for the CAPS coming from the GA program or from the administration?
Again, I think the way it would work would be, I assume that each cap would get a grant. So the program within that grant would be the admin cost. That's how I would assume it would work.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we're just trying to clarify what those costs are, and Senator Cummings' concern about leaving people on the street is a legitimate concern.
Yeah, I think they go to Senator Cummings' question, like, what are the costs? What would the costs look like? And
Yeah.
I mean, to me, we're going from one administrative group and we're farming it out to ideally 5 administrative groups. So it's,
The network is the number 6.
yeah, I mean, the network is kind of existing and has it's
Somehow they do it.
overhead, but these are new responsibilities
Yes.
that we're giving out to CAPS. And they've all been very clear, they can do it if, and every one of them said the if, we give them adequate support money. And I just want their estimate as they sit down as to what that will be.
So my suggestion is this has been a great conversation. And maybe we're gonna try and take 3 steps forward, maybe 1 back, but we're moving in the right direction at a good pace. So we're gonna come back to this. Obviously, there's a bit of a ways to go, and I'm hoping that the group that brought us some good information yesterday will be continuing work with the commissioner and DCF to bring us more. And I'll be doing what I can to get some resolution for this stuff. So we are finished for today. I know you're all here and anxious to comment, and I am anxious to hear what you have to say. We will get there, but we can't do it every single step of the way. And you understand that. I see that. I'm thank you for that. So we'll get to a place where we have language, we'll get to a place where we have bullet points for decision making, and we're on our way. We want to move with alacrity. All right, so we will take a short break.